Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel and Leisure Show. Welcome, everyone. Today we are focusing on small ship cruising. For some reason, I want to sing Sea Cruise, but I'll behave myself. You don't need to hear that. But we're going to be talking about yachts, windjammers, barges, riverboats, all kinds of experiences from the Galapagos Islands to Europe. This is going to be super cool. And we've got some awesome guests joining us, travel writers and authors. And everyone's website link is in the episode notes. Plus, we've got a list of articles and stories that you can follow up on from this conversation, also in the episode notes. And let's start off. We've got Sharon Kurtz back on the show. She's a travel writer and photographer, award-winning, by the way. You can keep up with her at SharonKKurtz.com, and that's Kurtz with a K. And she's here on Big Blend Radio every first Wednesday with her Wonder the World with Sharon podcast. So welcome back, Sharon. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well, Lisa. Happy to be here.
Oh, always fun, always fun. I'm excited about small ship cruising, and it seems that it's like a growing trend. Have you noticed that as a travel writer and in the travels that you do, that it's a little bit, I think more people are doing it than maybe 20 years ago?
Yes. And there's so many different types of small ship cruising to do. So it is an exciting field.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know our next guest definitely knows about cruising. Rose Palmer. She's a travel writer and photographer. You can go to her website, quilttripping.com. It's because she loves quilts. So it's quilttripping.com. She's got a brand new travel podcast coming out with us every second Thursday starting in November called Quilt Tripping Travel with Rose. And I better get this tongue twister done, right, Rose? Welcome back. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you.
I love this. I love this. So now, I know you've done all kinds of cruises from barges to, river cruises, all over the world, but I want to know, have you ever seen a quilt on a actual cruise ship, big or small?
I have, because I put it there.
There's the way to, so you actually travel with a quilt with you as you go?
So sometimes, no, this year was not a good year for that, but, I do try and make a quilt inspired by the destination that I will be visiting, especially if it's a kind of a bucket list, once in a lifetime kind of place. And it becomes a memento of that location. And so I do my research ahead of time and look for design ideas, and then I'll make it and I take it with me. So it's not going to be a very huge quilt. And then I try and photograph it on location. So, yes, I have had a quilt with me on a ship or on a boat or a barge more than once.
Wow. This is cool. This is cool. I want to bring our next guest on the show, Elaine A. Powers. She's an author, especially with kids' books, a conservationist and a biologist. And we're going to be, she's always on the show talking about iguanas in some way. You can go to her website, ElaineAPowers.com. She also represents the Tucson Sisters in Crime, which is a writing group out of Tucson, Arizona. So yes, she does get out of the desert and out into the sea at times. So welcome back, Elaine. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So I heard that, getting on a small cruise actually inspired some of your writing.
Actually, it has inspired my life in many ways. One of my first small cruises was to the Galapagos. And when I saw the iguanas, I knew iguanas were going to be very important in my life. And that led to cruising in a small research ship in the Bahamas to do iguana conservation research.
Wow. This is cool. We're going to have a real good conversation today. I'm loving this. We also have Diane Dobry back on the show. She's a food, wine, and travel writer. You can follow her websites. Go to gettinghungary.com. She loves Hungary. Okay. So I know that there's cruises through Hungary. I know that. Also discoverydays.com. That's with a Z, and HungarianAquarian.com. So welcome back, Diane. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. So, Hungary, I do know that there are river cruises that go through there, right? That's part of like the way people go to Hungary, right? Is to go on a cruise.
Well, there's, the Danube has a lot of their, the river cruises stop in Budapest or sometimes begin and end there as well.
What was the very first small ship cruise that you did?
Um, I did do a river cruise. Was the Great European or the Grand European tour on Viking from Budapest to Amsterdam and all along the Vienna and Germany and the Netherlands.
Ooh, that was one ship taking you to all
Yeah,
those places.
a 2-week cruise. It actually was a 3-week cruise. I got on at Budapest, but some people got on in Romania, in Bucharest. So they were on for 3 weeks.
Wow. So people could hop on and off, right? So that's kind of interesting to hear that you can do
Well,
that.
they didn't hop on and off. It just was you could have it an extended one by adding
Oh,
the Romania part.
I want to go to Romania. I went to Romania. Just sounds like
Me
we
too.
should go there. You know.
Transylvania.
Yeah, I mean, you see, now I'm going into the Rocky Horror Picture Show because I think how I first learned about Transylvania was, anyway, don't get me started on that. That's a whole other conversation. So I want to go to Sharon. Sharon, again, a travel writer and photographer. What was like the very first cruise that you remember that's a small ship cruise?
I went on a Maine Windjammer schooner cruise
Ooh,
in the Penobscot Bay. This schooner was called the Louis R. French. It was 150 years old, and it only got where it wanted to go by wind power, wherever the winds took us. And that was small, I think 18 travelers in the little teeny tiny cabin. But that was my first small ship experience.
so the Penobscot Bay, where's that?
That is in Maine, out
Okay.
of help me,
Rockport?
ladies.
Is it
Kind of
Rockport?
Bunkport.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard about this cruise now. Now I remember a friend doing this. Linda Kassam, you all know her from the International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, and I remember her doing this maybe 10 years ago. I'm just off the top of my head, and we do call her Diva Linda Kassam, and because she likes anything sparkly on her shoes, and and she does sail. She does sail. She would be on the show now, but right now they're packing up their yacht in Pacific Northwest. And so she does sail, and she takes her wine and she chills the wine under the boat because the water's cold enough. It's really cool. It's like the perfect temperature for wine. But I remember her going on that and being horrified because she couldn't plug in a hairdryer.
Yes. The cabins are so small. I think I had to open the cabin door and like leap onto my bed. And then I was with my husband, so I had to like crawl over him to get out and in. But you get used to it. After, you kind of say, okay, I'm going to get with the program. This is just how it is. And the only two bathrooms were up on the upper deck, and you had to tiptoe out in the middle of the night in the dark and go upstairs and hope no one was in there.
This sounds fun. This is kind of my style of travel. That's cool. That's cool. And so you're going by the wind. So that is so fun. Did you see like any, marine life out there? Dolphins, anything like that?
Dolphins and wonderful egrets and bald eagles, and the bird life was incredible. But my most fun thing we did on that trip was one night we took the rowboat over to a deserted island and had a lobster bake on the sand, on the shore. And that was it was a beautiful evening. The sunset was incredible. And it was just something that, you just don't do in your normal life.
That's a taste of Maine for sure,
Yes.
right? And you're out in the water, and they are known for their lobster. Lobster. Isn't that how you say it out there?
Yeah, lobster.
And so now you're doing the real taste of Maine and especially after being out on the water. That's super cool. And didn't they do Shelter? Was that movie Shelter Island that was out there? Well, I don't know if it
I
was
don't
called
know
Shelter.
about that movie.
It's got Matt Damon in it and a gentleman, Guy Grundy, who was on our show many years ago, was on it.
Was it Plum Island?
No, it was Shelter or something. I'm going to have to look it up now. I totally spaced out, but it was a crazy, crazy movie. And I think they filmed it out there. I love those kind of dramatic coastal regions. I want to go to Rose. What was your very first like memorable small ship? I mean, you've been on a lot of cruises. Like, didn't you just come back from one too? You're going on another one in a few days, you know?
So I've discovered in the last few years, especially since I've become a travel writer, that I think I'm a frustrated sailor, or maybe just a water baby. I don't know, but I am loving being on the water and the soothing serenity that comes with looking at the water and feeling the motion of the boat underneath my feet. I always sleep so well when I'm on a boat or a ship. But my first small ship cruising experience was about a little over a year after I started as a travel writer on a barge cruise in France on the Burgundy Canal on a boat called or a barge called the La Belle Epoque with European Waterways. And I know Sharon's done a cruise with them as well out in Italy. And oh my gosh, I got hooked. That's one of the most memorable, luxurious, wonderful experiences when it comes to cruising that there is. And it's nothing like a river cruise. We're talking really small floating luxury hotels with maybe anywhere from 8 to 15 passengers at the most. But my first experience there on the La Belle Epoque was there was just 5 of us, 2 couples from Australia and just me. My husband wasn't able to go with me on that one, and he regretted it after he read my story. But just a really wonderful way to travel slowly and just take in the calming scenery and see some unique sites that I wouldn't necessarily either know about or easily get to go see on my own. And then of course it's France, and so there's good food, and it goes without saying that there's good wine, and that there's at least 1 or 2 winery tours. There's bicycles on board because the towpaths that were used with these canals when they were actually real barges have now been converted into bike paths. And so you can just bike along and meet the barge. The barge moves very slowly. You can walk probably faster than the barge moves because the water's shallow, and then they have locks that they have to go through, and that takes time. So, I would just get on a bike and, bike a mile or 2 and then sit and relax and enjoy the scenery and wait for them to pick me up. It was just wonderful.
I'm ready. I like you're saying that it's been a hectic month, and all I can think of is like, I would like a really nice glass of wine, some brie cheese, and a canal tour, like on a barge, and just sit and float and look at history go by, right? And because that's the beauty of these.
Exactly.
That's like you're seeing the history. It's not always the ocean, that we're going to get into nature in a second, but like you're seeing I remember you coming on for one of the barge cruises you did and coming on the show. I think it was the first show you came on, and you did the Pandao one too, which I thought was really fascinating.
Yes. And on the Mekong. Yep.
Yeah. The Mekong River, in Asia, Southeast Asia, but, just to be able to see this history go by, like these cathedrals and that to me and to just have a glass of wine, just leave me there for a while. I'll get off, but just like, I need a day off and to have that kind of scenery go by, and I don't have to drive. I don't have to be responsible for anything. Like, really, right. Is that part of it, Rose?
Very much so. Very much so. The staff is always very attentive, very welcoming. So I've done 3 of these with European Waterways, and I feel very, very, very fortunate to have had the opportunity to travel with them 3 times, and each one's been a little bit different, but the staff is always so welcoming. And by the end of the week, I feel like I'm leaving family. I feel like I've been in someone's home for a week, just treated with the utmost care and love and attention. And somebody who also knows how to cook really well. And
that's a bonus.
has an excellent wine cellar, and fresh croissants and fresh baked bread and fresh cheeses. They come on board every day from the little markets that were near the towns that we're docked at. So you really can't beat it. I've been spoiled. It's a high bar.
I like this. I want to go to Elaine now so Elaine, the Galapagos was the first one or the Bahamas? Which one was the first one for you?
The Galapagos.
Oh, wow. So tell us about this ship, because this sounds like it's got some seriously cool history attached to it too. I mean, the Galapagos too. You got to think Charles Darwin, right? So there's massive history there, and nature. Did you see the snakes that go after the little iguanas on the Galapagos Islands? I haven't heard anyone actually see it, but I saw it on David Attenborough. Did you get to see that? The snakes?
No, I didn't. No.
They're like racers that come out after the iguanas, and the iguanas come out of their eggs and have to run for the surf, and all these snakes come after them. I know nobody wants to hear this on the show right now, but it's fascinating.
I have seen that in the Cayman Islands and in the Bahamas.
Have you?
It's one of the ways we knew when they were going to hatch, because suddenly all the racers start showing up.
Oh, they are racers. Okay, yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Like it, and I don't want to freak people out, but like it's amazing, that kind of thing that happens in the wild, to see it, to witness it. That had to be cool to see them.
It is a little sad, but yes.
But at the same time, they're not after you. They don't care about you, right? And that's where people get scared. But they're really they really want to do what they want to do.
Exactly. They just want their prey. They're not interested in the humans.
So don't be freaked out by it, but it is pretty cool. But there were no snakes on the ship, right? Like in a plane.
No snakes on the ship.
Okay, tell us about the ship, because this is amazing.
Well, a young captain named Fiddy Angemeyer had just started these sailing ship cruises around the Galapagos. And that really appealed to me, because at the time they mostly had those huge cruise ships with thousands of people on it. And it was I believe, a 4-masted sailing ship, and there were only 11 passengers. We had fresh water for drinking, but not for washing. So after 10 days of washing in salt water, we were a little slimy, but being able to go to the smaller islands was just phenomenal. And he was interesting because he was actually raised on the Galapagos Islands. His father was one of the few Germans that escaped Nazi Germany and settled in the Galapagos. Now, there is no standing fresh water. So it's a rough place to try to survive in, but they did, and they thrived. And it was interesting because his father would feed the iguanas, the local iguanas. So they would come running to him every morning for their breakfast, and then they'd go out. And when they formed the national park, they didn't want the iguanas fed. But because he had been doing it for so long, they allowed him to continue. So we got to see the iguanas come rushing up.
So with that, I mean, that's kind of getting on this kind of cruise, this ship. I mean, how many people were with you? Like in regards to, was like a different kind of thing, but it wasn't all conservation, right? Or was it on the ship?
No, this was a natural history tour for people who really wanted to see the animals. There were only 11 passengers and I think 4 crew.
Okay.
So it was a small, intimate group.
Yeah.
Especially a friendly group. We had a great time.
So did you get to see the big turtles when you were there?
Oh, yes.
Tortoise. Am I getting them?
Tortoises, yes.
Didn't we go through this before? I'll never get it straight. It's a turtle or a tortoise. So
those are tortoises.
Those big ones. The big ones. Yeah.
The second largest tortoise in the world, behind the Aldabras.
Wow. So when you went there, did they go around the islands so you could see different parts of it, or did they stop it and then you get out and explore the islands? Like, how did that work?
We could get off the islands, and they had trails that you had to stay on. So if there was an animal sitting in the middle of the trail, you actually had to step over it, but the animals didn't care.
Oh, and they have the boobies out there too, the birds.
Oh yes, the blue-footed boobies. One of the contests we had was to try to mimic some of the bird mating calls, and I won with my impression of the blue-footed boobies.
I'm telling you, you always learn something new about Elaine on shows. I mean, we did just recently find out that you've got some royal history, right? That, I mean, it's, Edgar Allan Poe, maybe even, some other royalty in England, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we now know that you are able to do a blue-footed booby call. And I have to read your recent blog about mockingbirds because that's my bird. That's my thing. I've got a thing about mockingbirds. Yes. So I'm going to have to go read that. Everyone, again, ElaineAPowers.com. Go to her website. She's got really cool things on conservation that she writes about. But that's amazing. Did they talk about their history of escaping Hamburg?
Yes, they did. And I'm not sure why they chose the Galapagos, but they did. And you have to admit they were hardy folks.
Yeah.
To be on an island with no way of getting supplies, no fresh water except what you collect from the skies. So very interesting. And he was an artist. And the father was an artist. So he occasionally would have some of his artwork sent to the mainland for sale.
Wow. This is fascinating. I love that each of you have got like completely unique experiences. I want to go back over to Diane on her Viking River cruise. 2 weeks on a cruise. Could you get used to that lifestyle? Because I've seen there are people selling their homes and just cruising. There's some people retired and said, you know what? I'm just going to cruise and that's it. Kind of like Nancy and I being on the road full time. They're like, we're cruising full time. Could you do that? Could you ever see yourself doing that? Could you even get away with it? I wonder.
Well, actually I was contacted by a company because I was looking at cruises for the last few years that I was searching for, including like some of the Windstar and the, small cruises. And one cruise line was trying to sell me, I don't even know how much it was. It was in the tens of thousands of dollars to buy like a residence on a cruise ship, but it was an ocean cruise. And I had done an ocean cruise back in 1994 with my ex-husband. And, it was fun for, being a young woman in my 30s. But when I went on the river cruise, I was like, this is the best cruise. And then I'm listening to the one about the barges because I've been researching those and I'm like, are they worth it? And now I'm really interested in that. But the river cruise for 2 weeks, when I got off in Amsterdam, I was like, no, please don't send me away. They just took such good care of me, and they were so friendly, and they were, they just gave you all kinds of information. They took care of every little detail. I have food allergies and food restrictions, and the head waiter just came over to me every day and said, here's what you should avoid and here's what you can have. And one time I was going to have some French fries and he came running up the stairs from the kitchen. He's like, don't eat them. They were boiled. They were fried in the same oil as the shrimp. So please don't eat them. So
you have the same thing Nancy and I have. Yeah, we can't either. Yeah.
So he was very attentive that, I didn't even think of it, until he came up and said, don't eat them. The shrimp was in the same oil. So now what do you think when I go places?
Yeah, everywhere you have to, especially in smaller communities too. If, a restaurant doesn't have enough funding to have more than one fryer and stuff like that. You think French fries are fine. I wanted to say that. I mean, this attention to detail as a single woman traveling, would you say these kinds of cruises are a good way to do it?
I've seen people comment online when they're looking to go on a solo cruise and they're like, oh, how will I deal with it? And, I was actually covering the cruise as a, media thing, and I was alone. but I sat at different tables with couples, and sometimes there were groups, but there was one table of a group of women who all were either traveling with a friend or relative. And I made a lot of friends. In fact, I even visited one couple in England last year that I met on the cruise, and they were the ones, they started in Bucharest and went all the way through for 3 weeks. So
Wow.
I really enjoyed it a lot, and I would love to do. There are some cruises I've seen that are 45-day cruises through all the rivers of Europe, and I'm like, that's what I want to go on.
Well, the river cruises to me are fascinating. There's something different than being on the ocean, and I love the canal idea too. And then the ocean, I mean, like what Sharon was doing. I mean, that was like, all right, you're in for an adventure. That sounds fun too. So I was going to say, because Sharon, you've done a lot of European cruises too, right?
I have. I have been on a barge cruise like Rose. Mine was on the Venetian Canal called La Bella Vita. And it was a small cruise, but it was in the Po River, small little places we went where you just can't not go, even if you're on a river cruise. We went even more intimate places. And then I've been on a Viking River cruise on the Rhine. And I've been on, my most interesting was this summer. I traveled with Riverside Luxury Cruises. It's a new cruise line. And it was a media trip. I was to board, my husband and I were to board on the Danube in June. And that is when they had so much rain and flooding. And our cruise was one of the, very frequently does it happen. It literally could not leave Vienna, and we were stuck because the river was flooded. So when everyone says river cruises are so attentive to their clients, they literally came to each individual on the cruise and said, how can we help you? What would you like to do? And so we flew down to Provence to their sister ship called the Revel and finished our cruise on the Rhone River. It was beautiful.
Oh, really nice. Really nice. Now, as a travel writer, I know you sometimes travel with your husband. Would you say also for a single woman traveling, this would be a good thing?
Yes. Do you know, on all of my experiences on river, barge, and the Windjammer were with my husband, but in April, I will be going on my first ocean cruise to Japan on the Diamond Princess cruise line.
Oh.
So I'll have something to talk about then to compare them. But until now, I've never been on an ocean cruise.
Oh, I want to go to Rose because I know, Rose, you do a lot of the cruises on your own, right? So for you,
I do.
You feel comfortable and going to dinner and everything like that?
Yes, and actually, real quick to Sharon, I just spent 20 days on the Diamond this summer, and it was wonderful. You're in for a treat.
Good.
It's a very, very unique cruising experience because it's immersive in the culture being on the ship, because the ship has about a third of the passengers are Japanese. And so there's activities that are very Japanese. The cruise directors, there was an English speaking and a Japanese, so everything is done in both languages.
Cool.
For formal night, when you'll see many of them dressed in their fancy kimonos. So it's a very, you wouldn't think of a big ocean cruise ship being culturally immersive, but this one happened to be. But and
I'm
it's
looking
for
forward to
a
it.
cruise ship. It's a fairly small ocean going vessel. But anyway, going back to your question, yes, I don't mind sitting by myself at dinner. I don't mind sharing and meeting other people. But I'm comfortable doing that. I'm an only child, so I grew up on my own, so it doesn't bother me. But I could understand why some may not feel comfortable doing that, and I just want to reassure them that, especially on a small boat or small ship cruise, because it's a small environment, the attention is much more personal. It's a lot easier to meet people. You really get to know the other guests, especially on the barges. We're on the one we had 5 people. On the second one, there were 4 of us. On the one that I did in Italy, the same one that Sharon did, we had a dozen. So over the course of the week, you're going to meet people, and actually we sat together, because it is such a small environment. We all sat together. It's not like we had our own table. And so it's a good, it's very convivial. You talk about all sorts of interesting things that, about what you did that day, but then also about their life experiences. And, many of these folks are well traveled. So you learn a lot about the rest of the world. And I usually end up coming home with about 2 or 3 more things for my bucket list.
Ah, see, I like this. Now I know that you also did the La Bella Vita cruise that Sharon's done, and we got a link to that article as well. But I wanted to ask you, because I know we've talked about barge cruises, and you went to Greece. So let's hear about luxury in Greece. Like, come on, man. That sounds, I'm like even thinking the food, like you're eating healthy, drinking really good wine. And I'm just going in there. So now this is like ocean, right?
So no? It's ocean because it's Greece, but this was a small, I believe it's called a barkatine. It was especially designed. It's a modern ship, but it looks like the old schooners. So it's got a lot of sails. So it looks when it's in full sail, it looks really, really pretty. But it has all the modern technology in terms of safety and navigation and everything like that. And I think it had 24 cabins so maybe 48 people max. But the both times that I was I cruised with her, we didn't have more than maybe 2 dozen. And the cabins are smallish, not quite as small as the Windjammer that Sharon was on, but most of them are smallish. The beds are twin size. They do have a few on the upper deck. They did have a few bigger cabins that they call suites, but each one had a bathroom. It's a small bathroom, but you've got your own bathroom.
That's nice.
Yeah, storage was a little bit sparse, but you got to learn to travel with less, which I can't do, but I'm trying. And again, it was a small ship experience, so you got to know the people on the ship, and had wonderful discussions. And this truly was international. We had guests from Italy, from Germany, from I think Canada, the U.S. obviously. So it was a very multinational clientele. And I always find that very interesting, chatting with folks from other part of the world and getting their perspectives. And then because it's a small ship, it can get into the smaller ports. And so we did, some of the islands that are not necessarily on most ship itineraries. I mean, we did the typical Santorini and Mykonos, but then we also did others, which actually I thought were much nicer because they weren't as crowded. So yeah, it's
that's cool.
Greece, love Greece.
I think the small ships are a neat idea because it also seems more environmentally friendly to me. I don't know. I don't know that, because I think some of the, I was talking, the head of Princess was on the show when the International Food, Wine, Travel Writers Association did the Discovery Conference last year. And he was on our podcast before that with Linda Kazam, the diva. And I asked him about the environmental concerns because, it's a city on the coast, in the ocean, these huge ships. And he was really telling me that the cruise ships are really making big strides to be more environmentally friendly, from how their engines work to what they serve to, it just seems that they are making progress. Rose, I know you do a lot of sailing. Do you think that's happening? It sounded like it to me.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to necessarily see it from the consumer side because they do a lot of this behind the scenes. So I can't tell when the ships switched over from one type of fuel to a more environmentally type of fuel. I do know Princess has recently, for example, increased their price for pre-ordering bottles of water, which a lot of people are up in arms about. But I'm like, you know what? They have to dispose of all that plastic. If people are insisting on purchasing plastic bottles of water rather than bringing a refillable bottle, which they have plenty of dispensers on the ship, and the tap water on the ship is perfectly fine. I think it's justified that they should be asked to pay for it. So, and then I know Norway, the Norwegian government is working on restrictions in terms of the type of fuel and emissions that the ships can have when they're cruising in the fjords. So it seems like they're making progress.
That's really good to hear. Elaine, what do you think? You're the conservationist and biologist on these ships. I mean, you did the small ships. Did you see anything in regards, when you were doing the one Exumas in the Bahamas and even the Galapagos ones that are working on the environment side of it?
Well, certainly because we were on a research vessel.
Yeah.
So there weren't any of the luxury items, and we brought our own bottles that we refilled. We had a limited amount of food and what we were provisioned with.
Okay.
So those ships are actually very environmentally friendly, simply because their size and what they're designed to do.
So tell us about that, like the Exumas one, what that was like, because this is going to be a little different. I know some artists in residence that did, through the National Parks Arts Foundation that we work with, we do a show every first Friday, and it's the artists in residence. And by the way, they have one in Saguaro National Park now, Elaine.
Oh, nice.
I know. So an artist goes there for a month, whether it's a musician, a songwriter, a poet, a painter, it's open to all mediums of art. And a lot of the artists have, not a lot, actually, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few of them did these research ships to the Arctic. And one lady does textile art, copying the sound waves and like all the data that comes up on these monitor screens, and did textile art. One musician I know, Glenn McClure, went and listened to the ice melt and then watched the sound waves and created symphonies off of it. It's crazy cool stuff. And there's there's like a whole Arctic collective for those who've gone there. And it's like writers and poets and people that have gone there on these small ships. And I'm going, dude, this is some crazy cool stuff. Like, I don't know if I would be able to handle the cold, but it's this epic thing. But they're also in using their art form to document what is happening with climate change and things like that. So it's fascinating. And it's like what you've done, right? With your books, helping kids understand wildlife and science. And I think what you're doing is awesome, doing all of that, because when we change and get kids' perspective and get their engagement, it often also changes adult perspectives. I'm sure you've seen that, right, Elaine, with your books?
Exactly, because many adults see my books and say, oh, I don't have any young ones at home. But I know that I'm educating the adults when they read to their kids.
Exactly. Grandparents, parents, even, brothers, older brothers and sisters. But tell us about this. What is a small research ship like? I mean, how many rooms? Are you sharing bathrooms? Is it kind of like, here's your crackers and that's it? Peanut butter?
Well, they're very small cabins. They're actually crew cabins, and required 2 per room. There's 1 toilet on the ship, and heaven help you if it's not working properly, but it was always a challenge. And then 1 quick little timed shower, so you could rinse off after a day of chasing large lizards across limestone karst through thorny shrub. So you get somewhat clean, but you're usually so exhausted it didn't matter as long as you had a place to get horizontal and get some sleep. I find sleeping on the ocean waves just lovely, the gentle rocking. And so the cabins are down below. We have the meeting room, research room, all together up on the deck. And then out back, we have the open area that has all the materials we need for the research, as well as the pontoon boat used to get to the islands. So it's not really a pleasure cruise, but I always enjoyed them immensely.
Okay, so I'm going to go around here and see from each of the travel writers. You've been doing the la-di-da side, right? Diane, would you do the research ship?
Would I do the research ship? I think I'd have to try a smaller, just cruise ship, or even like what Sharon had been on it with the Windjammer ship going around, but whatever according to the wind. And I was thinking of near me, I now moved to upstate New York near the Hudson River, and there's some Hudson River cruises, and those are kind of small ships. So I was going to try those. I think I need to just wean my way off of the larger size ships and see how I could do on that.
Ah, that sounds cool. I'll be going around the Hudson Bay and all of that. I mean, there's all kinds of even just day cruises, right? You don't have to be on overnight, but America does have river cruises and smaller ships, and like the Mississippi River and I know Columbia River Gorge up in Oregon, there's one. So there are also American experiences.
Or St. Lawrence Riverway, I think, may have some.
Cool. Sharon, are you going to go on a research ship?
I think I might pass on the research ship. I need a tiny bit more luxury than that. Not much, but maybe more than just the time to shower and peanut butter and crackers.
Okay. Rose, what about you? I already know, but I'm just going to ask.
Well, I mean, I do come from a science background, so that the science part of it really, I would love to do and fascinates and intrigues me. And there was a time when, maybe about 20 years ago, when I would have jumped at the chance. But like Sharon, now I need a little bit more space. I do like my privacy. I do like having my own bathroom. And just a little bit higher comfort level. So if they could just up the comfort level just a tad, I would jump on the chance to do a research, anything.
Yeah, you know what?
Like that.
Yeah, the citizen science side of it too fascinates me. It's like being able to do some of that, but it's kind of like we've gone from, I mean, I've done all kinds of camping, from sleeping in the back of my truck in the Anza-Borrego Desert, and like some, obviously how I grew up in Kenya, as a kid in the bush. So like, I've done all that. I've slept on many pieces of ground over my years, but now the world of camping, like glamping, appeals to me just a tad more. I don't know what happens when you get into the middle age, but the glamping side's kind of intriguing. So Elaine, would you go back on a research ship now, or like, would you do camping versus glamping? Where are you on that?
I would definitely go back on a research ship, because it gave me an opportunity to go to islands and see wildlife I couldn't see. I do enjoy glamping, especially when it's on the shore, and I can stroll out and see ocean wildlife. But it depends on the purpose. Then again, I would also be happy taking a writing retreat on a luxury ship, either on a barge or.
That sounds cool.
And just have time to commune with my muse and watch the scenery go by.
I would do the research ship 100%, because like, I kind of feel like that's how our life is anyway. I mean, we pet sit. So like, we don't have normal clothes anymore. It's like, yes, you're going to see the same shirt on Lisa on podcast because we travel full time, so it's just the way it is, like, so but it is, there's something, because it's temporary too, right? So getting rough and tumbling it for a little bit, I would do it. I would do the research ship for sure. I mean, there was, a fisherman ship that was out in San Diego that we went out to see whale watching and whales and whale watching and dolphins and everything. And we got to go around some of the islands that, is not open to public unless you are, like, there's only certain people that are allowed there. Santa Tomas, I think, is one. I can't remember all of them, but there were 3 little islands out there between Mexico and San Diego. And that ship, you had to stop yourself. It was a boat, so it's not a ship. It's like a fisherman's ship, like boat thingy. And it was such choppy water, and I could feel the urge to get seasick. And I went down and ordered a beer and told myself, have a beer. It'll make the bubbles and everything will make you feel fine. Now, this will not work for other people probably, but I had a beer and I said, I'm going to be fine, because if you even think you're going to get sick, you're done for. And you've got whales to see and dolphins to see. So I had that beer and then I had another one and I was just fine. So I don't know if that works for other people about the seasick thing on boats, but it worked for me. Maybe other people will have ginger beer or ginger ale or something, but it worked. And we did see whales and we saw all kinds of, oh my gosh, it's so cool. That's why I'm really fascinated about these small ship experiences, whether it's like the barge or the Windjammer and the river cruises with Viking. Because I think the river cruises with Viking, Diane, that's cool because you go on excursions at each port, right? That's kind of a cool thing. So it's not just the cruise itself. You get to go off and explore these areas, right? When you're doing those.
Well, it was like every morning they would have the walking tour that was included for everyone. And you could pick extra excursions to go on from, whatever was happening in the afternoon. Some people would skip the walking tour and do an all day, of excursions. And, that was really interesting because one of them I got to get off and make sausages in Bavaria and, other things
Wow.
like going to a cheese manufacturer in the Netherlands where they showed this big tub of, the whey being stirred up, and so they could make the Gouda, the Gouda, they pronounce it Gouda cheese,
Oh,
and just stacks and stacks, and they had all these little tastings of cheese that you could do. But like
yeah.
that every day they would have either a concert outside, like in Vienna, or they would bring someone in from wherever they were, the port. They had a glass blower come on board. They've had like an Oktoberfest, like kind of one-man band with the drum and the cymbals and everything come on, and everybody was dressed as not everybody, not all the passengers, but the staff were dressed in lederhosen and the dirndl skirts.
Wow. Wow. That's fun though. I mean, because then you're getting the cultural immersion and understanding where you are, And by the way, Gouda cheese, Gouda and Edam cheese were big in South Africa because of the Dutch,
Oh
but they
yeah.
said Gouda there. But I love that you have those experiences, I do want to say, Elaine, the Bahamas rock. We went on a cruise to the Bahamas. I think that was my first real cruise as an adult. And, we almost missed our ship back. We almost, because we had
Oh
too many
dear.
Bahamas and we were watching like this band that was really cool, local band. And we had to go shopping for the captain's dinner or something. I don't know, but we almost missed the boat back. Does that happen on small ships that you can, I mean, because I know the big ones will leave. I mean, we really had to run to get back on. They were about to, I mean, then there was a side of us that just said, who cares? Let's stay here. You have enough Bahama mamas, you'll just stay, But, on the small cruises, Rose, have you had that where you better get back or they will leave you? What happens with that versus the big ones?
Well, no, because it is a more intimate setting, there's more flexibility. And, you go out as a group on a tour, which, on the barges, a group was 4 or 5, 10 people. And then you come back on together. So, there isn't maybe that you're not off on your own where then you have to worry about getting back to the boat on time like you do on the big ships. And even on the river cruises on the Mekong, it was the same thing. We had excursions, we had a guide, we had crew that went with us with first aid kits and help people up the stairs or whatever help they needed, and then brought us all back. We all came back together. So no, I didn't encounter that as an issue at all.
Sharon, have you almost been late on a boat?
No, I've not done that. But as we were talking, I don't know what's wrong with my brain. I realized I have been on 2 other cruises, small ones, solo. One was an expedition ship to Patagonia, and
Oh, wow.
another was a gullet cruise in Turkey. And both of those I was solo.
Wow.
And they
Well,
didn't leave me, either one.
well, that's good. That's good. No one's been left behind then on the show. Diane, were you on your ship on time?
Yeah, I was always on the ship on time. I'm one
Yeah.
of those people that thinks 20 minutes or a half an hour ahead, like, oh, I better be there now.
Well, but all I know, I don't know, Elaine, if you had the Bahama Mamas the Bahama Mamas on the ship are different than the Bahama Mamas you get on the island. And when you do have them, then you want to stay. And I wanted to stay anyway because I felt like I was back home. Like it was like home coming to me going, I really didn't want to leave. Did you get in trouble, Elaine, like we did?
No, I didn't. We kind of, because we're a small
Working.
research group, we're kind of stuck with each other. For me, it was mango rum, but that was for purely medicinal purposes to ease my sore muscles at the end of the day.
Mango rum? I didn't even
Yeah.
know there was such a thing. I love
Oh,
mango.
it's very good. It's really smooth, very tasty.
Oh, maybe that's what they were putting inside the Bahama Mamas then.
Well,
Because it
they
did feel
generally use
good.
straight run for that.
Yeah, no, because we went into this little place and the guy told us to have he made a Bahama Mama for us. It started pouring rain. And he said, you take a drink. He says, take a big, big sip, right? And then put your head between your legs and shake it up and down and then sit up and take another sip. And that's what happened to us for the rest of the day. And that was stupid. But anyway, we had a good time. It was our first vacation in years and we had a blast. And I don't know how we ended up with Grecian outfits for, the captain's dinner, but we did. And, but anyway, that's a whole other story. All right. In closing, everyone, let's talk about a bucket list destination. I didn't say we're going to talk about that, right? But a bucket list and any tips too. If any of you have tips, please share that on this closing round of conversation. Any tips for folks going on a small ship cruise that may not have done it before? So any tips and, if you do or don't, but also someplace you want to go in a small ship, or if you've been eyeing a small ship cruise or something like that, let us know. We want to hear about it. We want to be part of the bucket list or the wish list, we should say. So Sharon, let's talk with you. Any tips?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
my tip is when you're on a small space, they have these magnetic hooks because you never have enough places to store your belongings. So bringing a magnetic hook along with you or a self stick, it lets you hang your items up out of the way. And my bucket list is going to be my first ocean cruise, actually in Japan in April. So
cool. This is cool. Rose, what about you?
Well, Antarctica, I did it on a big ship, and I thought that would scratch the itch. But now I want to do it on a small ship and see it from a different perspective. So Antarctica is still on my bucket list. And then as far as tips for small ships, space, as Sharon said, space is limited, and you need to try and practice packing light. As light as you can. They'll do laundry for you on all these ships, even the barges that I've been on. If you absolutely need to have something washed or you don't have enough clothes, they'll do laundry for you. So pack light because storage space can be limited.
There you go. By the way, everyone, it's the Antarctic that I was talking about. I don't know if I said Arctic or Antarctic. It's like tortoise and turtle. Antarctic. Got to get it straight if I messed up on the podcast. So that's that collective I was telling you about for artists. So check that out. Also, thank you, Diane, for letting me know it's Shutter Island was the movie we were talking about. And that is some crazy stuff if you ever watched it. Also, so Elaine, for you, any tips on surviving a research ship? I don't know what tip you want to give, but if you have one, do we bring Spam?
No, the food was actually very good on the ships, and we did have a cook. It was very talented. My tip is to put your clothes into sealable plastic bags so that in case during the crossing to the ship on the pontoon boat, you're immersed in the waves crashing over the front of the boat, everything stays dry. And then at the end of the day, when you have sweaty, wet stuff, you can put them in a plastic bag, because they're not going to dry in that humidity, and stick them away until you get home and deal with it. But And my bucket list is there are so many more islands in the Bahamas I haven't seen yet. So I would love to cruise around some more areas in the Bahamas.
I want to go with you, man. That's cool.
Okay.
And I love the way that you say deal with it when you get home. You come home and you undo your bags. You're like, dude, what did I do? What did I do? Where did I go? Yeah. And if you have dogs, the dogs want in the bags, right? They do. Even the cats may want it, So, yeah, it's the laundry after a trip is always fun because you bring home all kinds of different things for animals if you have animals to check out. So that's always a fun thing. Diane, for you, any tips and bucket lists?
Yeah, I definitely have a bucket list. Last year when I went to Europe, I went on with the tiniest suitcase and the tiniest carry-on because I was going on all these small planes. And I said, I hate doing that because I have like 3 outfits to wear and I did it for a month. So I said, I want to go on the Queen Mary from New York to London. And then after that, I'm going to try to do some river cruises. And I was looking at one of those ships that sails along the Italian coastline and the Dalmatian coastline. And then I want to hop on some trains on the continent to get around without having to go on a plane. So it's like a plane-free trip, but also getting in the local areas of France and Czech Republic and Hungary. I love Hungary, and then to get to the coast with trains. But the tip I have from being on the river cruise is the room I had a balcony, and I would say if you're going to save money not getting a balcony on a small boat, it's not worth it because all I did was air dry my underwear on the chairs. I didn't usually sit out there. I was doing things with people or I was out all day. And then the people who had the upper level balconies said they had spiders, coming off the roof, I guess. And so it wasn't really worth having a balcony. So I and I've heard a lot about people saying get the inside rooms on a ship to sleep on when you're on a bigger ship. So for the solo travelers, that's usually where they stick us anyway.
Wow. Anybody have comments on that? We've now got spiders on a boat. I don't know. Any comments? Anybody has experienced that?
No, I have not seen spiders on ships or boats. No.
I definitely need luxury. I want a balcony.
Yeah, I want the balcony.
I want the fresh air. I want to be out there. So, yeah, I would spring for a balcony for sure.
I would do the balcony because at the end of the day, you're around people and I need to get it. I do all, a lot of people stuff. And I'm kind of one of those extrovert, introvert people. And once I get into introvert mode, I just want to be alone outside with a glass of wine. I'm back on the barge. Okay. I want a balcony on the barge. I don't know if I can do that, but I want my balcony. Because I want just to be, I don't want to have to talk to anybody at a certain point. I just kind of shut down as a human. And I do that and it's not rude. It's just, I shut down. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I've been talking all day long. I'm out and I want my balcony and I want my wine. And so I think I'm going to have that, Diane. But I mean, did you put your undies out on the balcony?
There were little chairs, so I would hang them on there. The sunlight, the breeze. I was hoping they wouldn't blow off the ship, but when I wanted to get outside space by myself, I went up to the top of the river cruise ship.
Oh, okay.
Had a lot of lounge chairs and stuff.
And then when she looked over, she see a dolphin going off with one of her undies.
With my panties on his face.
Elaine, yeah, I mean, did you couldn't really do that in a research ship, right?
No, there was just the back end of the ship. You could go hang out, or you could. There was railing, so you could walk the length of the ship on the outside and just watch the ocean go by.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Ladies, thank you so much for a fun conversation. We've gone all over the place, all over the world. We love it. Everyone, again, keep up with Diane. I'm going to give the main one is gettinghungary.com. There's discoverydays.com, hungarianaquarium.com. All of them are listed in the episode notes. You keep up with Elaine. Go to elainaPowers.com. For Rose, go to quilttripping.com. And did I do that right, Rose? We got to get this straight. Yeah. And Sharon, go to SharonKKurtz.com, and that's a K for the Kurtz. And of course, keep up with us at Big Blend Radio. Thank you all for joining us, and happy sailing, y'all. I'm still in the Southeast, so I can say y'all.
Happy sailing. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Vacation Station Travel and Leisure Show, brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com or blendradioandtv.com. Happy travels!